Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to another edition of HBC to Startup, where we chat with startups and tech companies and you get your questions answered. Today, we are doing an info session with GitHub, and a lot of you who are developers should be probably familiar with GitHub. We're joined today with Veronica, who is a university recruiter at GitHub, and Maisha, who is a talent strategist. So I'm going to allow them to further introduce themselves and take it over. Hey, Maisha. Oh, yeah, sorry. Before we start, if you're watching and you have questions, feel free to tweet our account at HBCU to start up to ask your questions, and I'll have them make sure that they're asked. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you for having us. We're really excited to chat more about GitHub. So my name is Veronica. I am a talent strategist and university recruiter here at GitHub. And joining me is Maisha Cannon, who is also a talent strategist at GitHub. And we're excited to talk about careers, roles that we have open, both intern and full-time, and what skills are desired and required in order to be a successful engineer at GitHub. So I'm going to kick it to Maisha.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and thanks again, Hadia, for the invite. I thought I would start with a little fun fact. So there is a site called Alexa.com that ranks the traffic on websites across the country and around the world. So it's a global tracker. Any idea where GitHub ranks? I don't know if you want to guess, Hadia.
I'm not sure. I don't know. Let's go in the top 50.
Oh, very close. Wow, you would win some swag if we had something to give away.
Oh, wow. I'll stop by and get my swag.
We actually ranked 55 as of yesterday. And for perspective, that means GitHub.com gets more traffic than PayPal, Dropbox, and SoundCloud. So I thought that was a cool fun fact to share. So at GitHub, we build the tools that make collaborating and writing software easier for everyone. So we were founded in 2007, officially launched in 2008. And even though this is HBCU to startup, we really aren't a startup anymore, though we still have a lot of startup flair, and a lot of the culture still reminds you of a startup. But we actually operate in 18 countries. We have about 600 employees now, and we're the largest open source community in the world. So definitely for computer science majors who are aspiring to become developers, GitHub is a great place to get familiar and get to know others in the open source community. We have a pretty remote culture, and we definitely encourage collaboration, and we use the tool quite extensively internally. So even our accounting team, our HR team, we all are using GitHub. So I'd love to kick it to Veronica. She's going to share a little bit about some of our internship opportunities.
Thank you, Maisha. So all of our internship opportunities are based in our San Francisco office. And in 2016, that was actually the first year we had interns at GitHub, and it went really, really well. So the feedback from the interns themselves and from the managers was super positive. We had 14 total interns this year, spread across all of our different business units, from engineering to sales, marketing, and finance. And so we're really excited to continue the program and grow it. This year, we're looking to have about 30 or so interns, which we're really excited about. We're looking at a 9-week program, usually runs from June to August, and our interns work on some really great projects. They present them to the entire company at the end of the summer, and we also have a lot of fun in our internships. So not only are our interns learning and sitting side by side with our developers, but they're also getting paid really well, which is nice. We also offer monthly housing stipends if you're coming from outside of the Bay Area. Really just want you to come in and learn a lot. And we also have a lot of fun activities that we plan throughout the summer, so that way you're also bonding with your other interns outside of the teams that you're working on. And so as far as, what we're looking for when we're recruiting internships, so we started the bulk of our recruitment in the fall. And so we've actually filled, at this point in time, we've filled the majority of our internship roles for the summer. So I'd really love for you to just look out at the beginning of September is when we start posting our roles for next year. So for 2018 internships, keep a lookout on our jobs page for the roles that we'll have open for 2018. Also, our interns worked on a landing page that has more information, and I'll kind of talk about that more here in a second about, you know, what they did in order to create that page. So in order to be an intern at GitHub, we do have a few requirements, but we try to not limit them too much because we want to make sure that we're able to recruit from everywhere. So we recruit students from all over the world. You must be enrolled in either a four-year college, a master's program. You could be a PhD student or at a community college, and you can be eligible to be an intern at GitHub. The only thing is that you need to be returning to school in the fall of after your internship. So for this year, you would have to be returning to school in the fall of 2017. So we do have mostly, as far on the engineering side, they're mostly application engineering roles that we recruit for internships. We also have a couple of data science roles. The data science roles aren't externally posted right now, but if you are interested, you can definitely push your resume to us. We'll give you our contact information. That way, if you're interested in data science, I can talk to you more about those roles. But like I said, the best way to keep up with the roles themselves are internships.github.com page, which our interns actually created actually on their own this year, which was pretty fun and exciting for them to see. They really wanted to create a landing page that displayed what their experience was like and what projects they worked on, and then also display the roles that we have open as far as internships at GitHub. So definitely check that out. One other thing to note that's actually super important for our internship engineering positions at GitHub is that our interns are primarily using Ruby on Rails. So GitHub is built on Ruby on Rails. We're a Ruby shop, but they are full stack roles. So front end wise, JavaScript knowledge, CSS, and MySQL is super important. And interns that came in that maybe weren't super proficient in Ruby were actually really proficient in Python. So if you know Python, that's a great language to also to know, but you'll just know that you'll primarily be working in Ruby and Ruby on Rails. So gaining that experience is super important in order to be a successful intern at GitHub. I also want to note, as far as when you're submitting your application as an intern, we get so many applications and I mean that in like the thousands for intern roles. And as our intern program is growing, we are still only have a number of limited roles. And so we're just looking at so many applications. So I would advise that submitting a cover letter with your application is super important, and for a couple of reasons. One, it definitely makes you stand out in that you aren't just kind of blindly applying to the roles, but that you are really interested in GitHub. We want to know why. Hiring managers love that. They want to see how you're using GitHub and maybe like what suggestions you would have to improve the product, because as an intern, you're going to be working on either a new feature for the site. And so, they want to know that you're passionate about GitHub and that you want to contribute to the product as a whole. So I definitely encourage cover letters when you're submitting your applications. Internships. So also another thing that's important to note for internships is having a github.com account and creating a profile. And as you go along further in your career, and Maisha, we'll talk about this a little bit here in a second, but what work you have on GitHub, also employers look at for, to see your code and to see the work and projects that you have worked on. That's super important. So making sure that your profile is up to date and that you have work on there is wonderful. And we definitely look at that for internships and see, what you have on there, because, it's our product and we want to see that you know how to use it and love using it. So I'm going to kick it back to Maisha, who will talk about more about full-time opportunities at GitHub.
Thanks, V. So just to piggyback a little bit off of some of the same skill sets that our internships require. I'll talk a little bit about experienced hires, which really require at least a full year plus of experience. So not so much for new grads. You would either come in through the internship program or after you had gained at least a year of experience. So I wanted to highlight these 3 roles because these are the most commonly seen entry-level roles that we'll have at GitHub. The first is an associate application engineer, emphasis on the associate. And it's a very rare role. I think the last time I saw one of these was late 2015, but it's a really nice opportunity for a junior Ruby programmer who maybe has a solid year of Ruby under their belt, who wants to start doing more of the full stack work and getting into more of the technologies that Veronica referenced, some of the JavaScript, CSS, HTML. So keep your eyes open for that type of role. It requires between 1 and 3 years of experience. And as I said, it's more rare, but they do pop up from time to time. While we are pretty much a remote environment, the one aspect of this role is that it needs to be based in our headquarters in San Francisco, because that gives an associate or junior engineer opportunities for mentorship. And once they're up and running and everything is working out, then of course we'll open that opportunity to work remotely. But that's an HQ-based role. The second role here is an application engineer, and that's a standard engineering role here at GitHub that requires typically 3 to 5 years of experience or more. And they're using technologies like Ruby on Rails, Postgres, SQL, JavaScript, and Linux on occasion. So that application engineering role is one to look out for as well. And then the last role I've listed here, we call our technical support OCAT. Our mascot is the Octocat, so that's where that name comes from. And this is a role that actually requires between 1 or 2 years of experience, primarily using Linux and also any scripting languages like Bash or maybe even Python for scripting. And that's a role that provides customer support or technical support to the engineers using GitHub. So that's a really interesting way to start learning about how engineers use the tool, how developers are using the tool across the world, and being able to troubleshoot some of the challenges that they may have on the site. So definitely someone who's very tech savvy would enjoy that technical support cat role. So the best way to apply for all of these jobs is through the career site, and we'll show that link a little bit later here in the deck. And the main thing to keep in mind when you're applying is that when it comes to listing out the skills that you have, the coding languages that you're using, anything on your resume is fair game. So be cognizant that when you're listing 10 software languages, right, just because you took a course in C and C++ and JavaScript and Ruby and Python, etc. When you list all of those languages, sometimes it kind of waters down, the resume, and we don't know as recruiters where your strengths lie. So be expected or be prepared to speak to anything that you write on your resume. And so with that in mind, I know Veronica and I have kind of tossed this idea back and forth of what's the best number of languages to put on a resume. I would say to highlight your top 2 or 3 languages. And not everything you've had exposure to are you proficient with. So if your specialty is Python and you've dibbled and dabbled in JavaScript, but you're really not comfortable in it, don't necessarily list it on the resume. Obviously, we know that anyone who can learn one computer language can likely learn another, but really use your resume to highlight those languages that you're most proficient in. So I want to kick it back to Veronica, and she's going to share with you a little bit of about how we assess talent once you've applied.
Thank you, Maisha. So how do we assess skills here at GitHub? So one of the many things I love about our interview process here at GitHub is we're never going to grill you. We don't whiteboard, and we are not going to give you any puzzles. Whatever skills that we are assessing for are going to be skills that we are truly looking for in the role, and our interview process has been tailored so that you are, especially in the technical portion, that you are doing what you would do in your role, so we can see where your skills are at. So It's not meant to be nerve-wracking. I know interviews can be super nerve-wracking, but we definitely try to humanize the process as much as possible. So we don't use any third-party coding like HackerRank. Everything is done in GitHub. Our engineers and engineering leadership have actually created the process tailored to GitHub. And it's really what we're trying to assess are your problem-solving skills, what your thought process is as you are working on a problem, and really being able to verbalize that, because working in teams and working together and being very collaborative, like Maisha was talking about, is super important at GitHub. So we want to know that you can communicate and walk through an issue just like you would as an engineer at GitHub with a peer. So we do a lot of paired programming and a lot of teamwork in order to get things done. And as far as timing, our exercises, we don't like to do super timed, like clock starts now and you know, you have this countdown in your head. We also don't want you to spend a lot of time on your technical interview process. And so we do have, you know, suggested amount of time in order to complete interview processes, but it's really like we don't want that to be an extra kind of outside pressure when you're completing a technical exercise. And our technical interview for engineering at GitHub in general is a take-home test. So you have a couple of hours to do it, and you get to pick the time that you want to complete it. All the instructions are there, and you're able to do it at home versus that on-the-spot coding that you have to do sometimes at other companies where like someone's watching you and you have to. It can be nerve-wracking. So I love that about GitHub, and it's not traditional, I know, to like academia where it's like you have this time test, but it really is applicable to what it would be like to be an engineer at GitHub. So, and I think also what's really important outside of like the technical abilities is being able to work on a team. You could be the best developer at GitHub, but if you're not able to work well with others and empathize with others, you most likely won't be successful at GitHub. And work on a remote and distributed team. 60% of our company is remote and distributed, meaning they work from home. We have employees all over the world. So being able to communicate is super, super important. Communication skills is, I cannot stress that enough. And being collaborative, can't say that enough. And being able to give and receive feedback. I know that can be difficult, especially when you're starting your career, and depending on what your experience has been like. Feedback is super important, but being able to give it up and being able to receive it and take that in and grow from it is very, very important, just in your career as a whole, and that's very important as well at GitHub. So I'm going to kick it back to Maisha to kind of talk about, what are some resources and what we offer at GitHub to kind of help you on your journey to be a successful engineer.
Thanks. So Ruby is an interesting language because it's not traditionally taught in universities as part of your basic CS curriculum. It seems like most of the candidates I talk to have learned Ruby and Ruby on Rails on the job. They were self-taught or maybe even in a boot camp. So we wanted to curate this list of resources for you that highlight some really cool places where you can start to learn Ruby on the web. There are a ton of resources online that are free or low cost. So check those out at this bit.ly. It's called Get HBCU Resources. So you can visit that link. You'll find some Ruby specific resources there. There's also a really cool value add that we partnered with our education team on to provide to you today. And you can check out this link for our developer tools for students. And if you sign up with your university email address, the education team will send you this packet of free developer tools. So it's everything from discounted access to sites like Udacity and Flatiron School, or you can actually get our free hackable text editor called Atom. And it's open sourced, and you can play around with that as you continue to build out your coding skills. So definitely check out this link for that resource and a few other things that we threw in there. So hopefully that will be helpful to you as you start to navigate and think about how you can use github.com to grow your career and even help with some of the projects that you're managing as students. So we hope you enjoy that. Veronica's going to share the next slide with you, and then we're going to hop into some Q&A.
Sorry, so this is our jobs page. So this is where you can find all of our open roles on github.com about jobs. It has more information about our full-time roles and our internship roles. So we're always updating this page. So keep an eye. We're doing a lot of hiring in 2017, and I'm sure that will spill over until 2018. So definitely keep an eye on your jobs page for open roles, and feel free to reach out if you see anything that looks interesting.
Yeah, and I think we should mention too, V, this picture is actually from our all company summit that we do every year. So this is what, I guess, 500 or so GitHubbers this past summer. We went somewhere fantastic. I can't remember where, but it was, do you remember the location?
Well, I think this picture is from San Diego, but we went
to San Diego. Okay.
Yeah, but we went to, this past summer, we were in Colorado.
Yeah.
Colorado Springs, and it was amazing. There were about 600 employees, and everyone from all over the world came. We go to all one location. We spend about a week together, growing, doing workshops, having a really, really good time, and just kind of meeting face-to-face those people that we're working with that we don't see actually in person all the time. So it was a really great bonding experience, for sure. And it's a lot of fun.
Yes, thank you for having a better memory than I have. So we're going to open up to questions. Hadia, should we come off of our slides and you can see our faces if you have any questions?
Yes, yes, I do have questions. So I think the first question goes to the last slide, close to the last slide about where you had the team that show up. And if you go to that last slide, I think it is apparent that most people from our community, from the HBC community, will look at that and say, there aren't too many people in there who look like me. And so my question would be, so if someone is joining your team and they're the first of their community in any type of identity group that they may be, what are some of the resources, and specifically if someone is like the first member of their team or the only member of their team who is Black, are there any kind of tips or resources that GitHub provides so that they can be successful in their role?
Yeah, I mean, I love to hop in, and you can hop in too, V. I can't, we have a social impact team headed by Nicole Sanchez. And so her team is really the best team to speak to all of the efforts that GitHub is making, within diversifying the company. But just on a small scale, I can speak from my own personal experience. So I belong to a group of other, I don't know if I can say the name of it. It's Black-to-Cats. So we're the Black Octocats.
It's public. It's public.
Yeah. Okay, good. So yeah, so we have, our own private Slack community, and then we're actually working on some exciting things this year that we're going to do for the company to just kind of add value. I was on a call yesterday when we were brainstorming about what we want to do for Black History Month. So it's one of those environments where I think in my 20-year career, this is the first place where I felt like, even if I am the only, whatever that may be on a team, whether it's Black or a woman of color, I really have a voice. And so it's been great to kind of, touch different projects with the social impact team and also with Black-to-Cats, just to kind of continue to push awareness, within the organization and kind of share, unique perspectives. I don't know, for you, V, I know you're pretty active with Code 2040 and some other stuff internally. You want to share anything around those pieces?
Yeah, so I love that Maisha gives credit to social impact, but I feel like we should give ourselves some credit as well, because in the hiring team, we work really hard to, especially as sourcers and active in the recruitment community, to always, target underrepresented groups. And all of our intern recruitment events that we went to this year were like SHIP and Tapia. Like every conference we went to was targeted specifically so that we are visible to those that come from underrepresented groups in tech. And so we actively are working on that as a hiring team. We still have a lot of work to do, but we are, GitHub is a great place where we have affinity groups. We do partner with Code 2040, so we have their fellows here as part of our intern program. So we'll have 5 fellows this year here at GitHub, and so we host a bunch of events with all kinds of different groups here at our HQ for free. We'll sponsor them. It's something that it comes from, a lot of organizations have like a diversity manager and things like that. Like it really comes from our CEO down. And we, champion him as our head of diversity, and it's everybody. So no matter where you come from, what you identify as, whatever, like there is a place for you at GitHub. And we want to continue to make sure that that's, we're not only recruiting diverse talent, but we have an inclusive space for you to come and do your work.
So my next question would be, so a lot of people who are coming from our community, even if they graduated a couple years ago, maybe their first role wasn't at a tech company. And so for a lot of them, they're trying to figure out, how do I get my foot into the door at a tech company? So it'd be helpful if you share your experience, your background, where you came from, and how did you essentially get your foot in the door, or how did you come to work at a company such as GitHub?
Wow, that's a great question. It's funny because my first tech company was actually Google, and I had applied several times over the course of my probably been 15-year career at Google, and I had never heard back. And then I got sourced on LinkedIn. So I'm a talent strategist, and that's what I do. I find people who maybe hadn't applied or wouldn't think to apply to GitHub to bring them in. So I actually got into Google because one of their recruiters sourced me. I think the lesson there was, even though I was actively applying multiple times over my career, just having a digital footprint where I could be found later helped me land my first role at a tech company. And it's not a shabby tech company for your first job in tech. So I would definitely encourage, your viewers to make sure they have their GitHub profiles and whatever other social media that they are comfortable on, have it available so that at the right time, the recruiter from that tech company may be able to find you. I don't know, what's your story, Dee?
Yeah, I love your story, Maisha. Yeah, so mine's a little different. I come from a background in staffing and worked at a staffing company for a long time, and mostly like industrial type work and not tech at all. And when I moved to San Francisco, I worked at a company called Linden Lab, which is a virtual reality company, kind of like a gaming company, and really gained a lot of experience there. And just kind of fell into tech. I liked the company, didn't even really know that much about tech, and learned a lot. And so I felt like my skills were that I had gained from my staffing experience, was super transferable to what I was doing in my role at Linden. And so I feel like as long as you have, even if you don't have a tech background, like as long as you have transferable skills, I feel like that's super important as well. But it's important to note, like so many people do so many interviews. And I always encourage you, like, even if you have an interview for a company that maybe you're not that interested, like always take the interview, because if at the very least it's practice. And so for that one role that you do want. And so, yeah, I feel like part of it is definitely the transferable skills. Also, networking is super important. Like Maisha said, like LinkedIn is huge, Twitter. Like I go on Twitter to try to find candidates as well. So Twitter, Instagram. So, be mindful, of course, it's a whole nother webinar, but be mindful of what's on that for sure. But there's, having a digital footprint is definitely important as well.
Thank you. That's extremely helpful, and I think it's what you last said. Like, be mindful, like what type of digital footprint that you put out there. So we are at our last minute. What's the best way to reach out to you, to contact you? If someone wanted more information.
Yeah, I'd love to share this final slide with you. Can you see that on your screen? So you can get connected with us via any social media that you see there, either following GitHub on Twitter. We're all on LinkedIn. Veronica's information is there, mine is there. And then Tessa, she is our engineering sourcer. So she does the same thing that I do in terms of finding talent, except she's doing it for the engineering team, and I'm doing it for the non-engineering roles. So feel free to reach out to Tessa on LinkedIn as well, and we'll make sure that you have these links to Hadia, so you can share them on Twitter or on your on the YouTube page.
Well, I definitely want to thank you both for joining us today. I think we are about the end of our session. And for those who are watching either live or watching later, feel free to reach out. Thank you. You guys have a great day.
Thanks. Bye now.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.